next up, Paul Swinney, who's going to talk to us. He's the Director of Policy and Research at the Centre for Cities. And he's going to talk to us about how cities can achieve net zero. All yours.
Lovely. Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everybody. I hope if I stand here, I'm not going to mess up with the camera angles too much. Great to be in a room where I look around and see the illustrious names and think actually quite a few of them had a great degree to do with the amount of CO2 that's actually in the air today when you see people like Newcomen and Derby and Watt, etc. So very fitting that we are in here. Who are Centre for Cities? Who am I? Who is Centre for Cities? So I head up the research team at the think tank that looks at the geography of the UK economy. Which bits are doing well, which bits aren't, what should local and national policy do about it? Now, you had lots of presentations today. I'm going to tell you about something that hopefully you haven't heard about so far. Really, really sexy policy. I'm sure you've had loads of fantastic things so far. This one tops the lot. Wait for it. Wait for it. Is it going to turn? There we are. Whoa, look at that. Planning policy. This is really, really important to the net zero agenda. I think rightly we think about the importance of battery storage, solar panels, etc., etc., etc. They're all really important. They're all tech whiz, so we get very excited about them. We never talk about this, and I'm going to say about why this, not on its own, but certainly should be part of the solutions of how we think about trying to reach net zero in this country. So there are two main reasons for that, and Paul put up a chart earlier which showed how much homes and how much transport contribute to carbon emissions in the UK. First one, from a planning policy perspective, which particularly around encouraging density, is that these types of houses here emit less CO2 than these types of houses here. They're probably, although I haven't done the research, I'd imagine they're less carbon intensive to build, the ones on the right as well, and the ones on the left as well. But certainly from an ongoing emissions perspective, housing emissions are less in these types of houses because they are more houses together, tend to be slightly smaller as well. It's a bit easier to manage energy consumption in those smaller places than it is in some of the bigger ones. Second one is how it impacts on transport. So if you think back to those two houses there again, lots of people living very close together in the housing picture on the right-hand side. That means lots of people in one place, much easier to put a bus stop in, and then provide a reliable and frequent bus service, or perhaps even a light rail or a heavy rail service. The house on the left, low density, lots of people spread out. You're quite far away from your bus stop. That bus then doesn't run very frequently because the market isn't very big. What do? You jump in the car. So you then get something that looks like on the right in a low density place, as opposed to something on the left, Oxford Street here, although the picture is a few years out of date, but you get the point. Oxford Street there, served by very frequent and highly reliable bus routes and tube routes going in through the centre there, but of course across all of London. That is much more the case than what we see elsewhere. And therefore it's no surprise that levels of commuting by public transport are much higher in London than elsewhere, about 50% for London as a whole. If you talk about central London and workers coming into central London, 90% of people take public transport, walk or cycle. 90%. I mean, we get nowhere near that anywhere else in the UK, and that's incredible. And that is purely down to the density of London, the economic geography of London, where there's over 1 million jobs right in the centre, and people live in dense communities for the most part, which means it's much easier to serve by public transport, and crucially, using your car is a massive pain in the backside. Other policies have come in to help, like congestion charge, etc. But they're the reasons why we see these patterns. That wasn't meant to happen. Sorry about this. Right, I'm going to tell you what was on this chart. It's beautiful, isn't it? Blank. If you could see it, it would be fantastic. The chart would absolutely blow your mind. What it says is that as a result of density, carbon emissions in cities are lower, in UK cities, are lower than what they are in non-urban areas. Now, that shouldn't come as a surprise now when we talk about, or we think about what I've just told you about. So industrial emissions are lower in cities. That's in part because industry tends to locate outside of cities, so they get a bit of a head start in that respect. But then housing emissions are lower, and transport emissions in particular are lower. And again, it's this element of density that really drives that allows urban areas to be less carbon intensive than is the case. Oh, there we are. See, look at that. Less carbon intensive than what we see elsewhere. So I wasn't lying, was I? That is actually what that chart says. You can see there 4.3 tonnes of carbon dioxide per capita in urban areas, 63 largest urban areas in the UK, at 6.2 tonnes per capita for places that are not part of those 63 largest urban areas. So this density element is really important, and cities in particular have a very important role going from where we've got to already and the huge savings we've seen already to actually get us to that net zero destination. And because of the nature of the urban environment, it's going to have to be our cities in particular that do the disproportionate lifting from now to net zero because of their built urban form. In rural areas, unless we're going to build new high-density cities, they're just more of a disadvantage in terms of achieving some of these goals. But the problem that we face in the UK is that our cities aren't very dense compared to European standards. So you can see here from this chart what it shows is the number of people that live in areas in terms of how dense they are. Basically what it shows is that the light green bars are areas where there aren't very many people living in low density areas, and as you go through to the purple and the dark green ones, they're areas where there really are a lot of people living in them. And UK, far right hand side, we've only got 2 colours on there, and the key has got what, 8 is it? 8 different ranges. We just get nowhere near levels of European densities. And even in London, when you look at some of the densest areas of London, they're nowhere near as dense as parts of Barcelona, for example. And this is where we've got the key challenge, is about how we plan our communities. I think the particular challenge is that we are continuing to build, in a lot of places in the UK, low density, semi-detached and detached housing estates on the edge of town that are baking in car dependency, just from their very form. Car is easy to use, then public transport, so people use it. If we want to see a tip in that balance, it's not going to be about trying to make buses cheaper. It's not going to be about sort of morally pleading that people get on buses or get on trains rather than getting their cars. It is about changing the urban form, so naturally you see a change in the benefits that people face in terms of using these different types of transport. So, lots of local authorities claim that they're all for net zero. They come up with all sorts of policies where they claim that that's the case. If you really want to know how serious local authorities are, look at the planning applications you approve and they turn down. See what they look like, how dense are they and where are they, and that'll give you a good clue to how serious they are about achieving net zero, the biggest tool they've got to bringing down carbon emissions in their area. And that pretty much sums up what I've just said. Thank you very much.